Happy Christmas from Manx Radio.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line on Manx Radio. We're open line through till 1 o'clock today. Did you hear that programme on the BBC last night about Dr. Rosalind Ranson and Catherine Megson? The island's former medical director was discussing her time in the role and events that led to that unfair dismissal for whistleblowing that you and I shelled out to the tune of £3.2 million and government costs of 900,000. So there's also the question of fluoridation of the Isle of Man's drinking water. Would it help reduce dental decay amongst children? There was a meeting, the campaign group Say No to Fluoride got a petition on the prospect as well. We were at that public meeting last night, so there was Dr. Rosalind Ranson, there's that, and of course there is the subject of the vote of the bishop, the position of the bishop in Tynwald and the vote. What are your thoughts? Get in touch, please, by all means, get in touch. And I will tell you, we do have a vote going on at the moment. This is not a vote on Mannin Line. This is a vote on social media. If you want to find out more about it, you go to our social media pages, go to Twitter, X, or you go to our Facebook page with all the talk about this. We've posted polls on Twitter and Facebook. They're going to be open for 24 hours. So tomorrow, Thursday, we will announce the result of the polls. Your thoughts about whether or not the bishop should have a vote in Tynwald. Of course, this is a straw poll. It's very much non-scientific, but we'll see what happens. So go to Manx Radio's Facebook page or go to X, formerly known as Twitter, and it says, yesterday MHK's voted to progress a bill proposing to remove the vote from the bishop. So we want to know what you think. Should the bishop be able to vote in Tynwald and Ledgeco? That's on X, Twitter, and also on Facebook. And first of all, Victoria's on the line. Hi, Victoria.
Hi, hello everybody. It's just that at the government conference that was held at the Villa Marina, Laurie Hooper spoke. We had a Q&A, and somebody asked him about the assisted dying bill. And obviously it was a private member's bill, and he said he couldn't get involved in that. But he said he personally didn't think the bill went far enough. And I just wondered if he thought that the removal of the bishop's vote would enable expansion of the bill. I mean, I don't know. I'm just asking. I
mean, in your opinion, do you think the bishop, that religious aspect is added to by the bishop, or is it kind of anachronistic nowadays with most people not going to church?
Well, I'm not a Christian myself, but you probably have like a lot of people, you've got a lot of values, across religions that are the same, just caring about people. And I'm just wondering why there is such a drive for it when there are a lot of issues, with the health service and all sorts of things not being dealt with. What is the real objection to it? Aren't there more important things that could be dealt with?
I think they'd probably say, and Mr. Hooper made the point, that this is a process that started earlier on this year. There was that. He's just carrying on with what was there before. So he's kind of, I'm not saying he's a victim of process, but it's a process thing, really.
Well, I'd probably just like to know a bit more about what he thinks about the bill itself and the bishop, whether it's connected.
OK, all right. Appreciate that, Victoria. Thanks for calling.
All right, thank you.
Cheers. Bye. Now, it's 11 minutes past 12. Here's David now. Hi, David.
Hi, Randy. Just a couple of things I should mention. One is the bishop, and they've also forgot about the chaplain of the House of Keys. There is a chaplain that sits in the House of Keys there, and he does the prayers, and we still haven't got the figures of... And I suppose we need to know who is actually taking prayers anymore, or who's not in the chamber. That would be a good thing. And as for Mr. Murcott, what a brave lad sitting there on his own. Do you know what? I've got better things to do on a Tuesday now. That's why I wasn't down there. And if I could find a park that wouldn't cost me a fortune, I'd have probably been down there. And I was just going to add on too. Don't forget, when you, in my experience is, and I talk to the clergy, I talk to free thinkers, and I talk to all sorts of different people. And at the end of the day, the bishop has not cost us any money. That's the other thing that's not gone out here too, is he doesn't cost us any money when he's sitting in the chamber. And I used to use him, it's always been a him, but it could be a lady in the future there, is to talk to them at mealtime, break times, and get a point of view of what's going on in the community. And I just wonder with Mr. Hooper, did he ask the community in Ramsey before he brought this forward? Because it's a private member's bill, and if he's saying, he tried, it was something he tried some other time there, why has he brought it up now? And is it because there's other things that should be done? Like the lady said before, there's loads of things that should be done. The legislation should be reviewed in both houses. And the one that gets me going is regarding vaping in the Isle of Man. Why aren't the politicians getting together and saying, right, we're going to sit on this till we make the legislation approved and then get royal assent from it, like they're doing in England at the minute? They've done it. So vaping, if you're a juvenile under a certain age, you can't do it. But you see the kids, I'm aware of kids vaping all the time. They're going to Bemahig School, they're going to St. Ninian's School, and you see the clouds of, I thought it was dust, but it's clouds of vapes that comes up, and you go to social events, and you see young people vaping, and you wonder what, the health service is under great strain, and we want medical care, don't we? But should we be exercising some advertisement to them, tell them, like you used to do in the telly, this kills you, you smoke, it kills you. Eventually, we'll get you in the end. And the same with vaping. And I'll leave it at that.
All right. Thanks, David. Good to hear from you. Regarding the bishop, says C on 885, I'm deeply saddened that a vociferous minority is prepared to erode yet another part of our tradition and the Isle of Man's history. We're set to lose one of the oldest dioceses in Britain to massage the opinion of some of the representatives of the population. It's a disgrace, C's word. I'm not a member of the God Squad, just an ordinary person, so don't mess with our history. Well, you get a chance to vote if you want on social media. Go to Manx Radio's Facebook page, go to our Twitter, X, follow us there. And by the way, you are following us on Facebook and Twitter, aren't you? Good, thank you. Yesterday, MHK's voted to progress a bill proposing to remove the vote from the bishop. So we want to know what you think. Should the bishop be able to vote in Tynwald and Ledgco or not? Go to our Twitter X feed or go to the Facebook page as well. I was asked yesterday who voted, by the way, and for the record, there were 14 for and 9 against. And voting for the second reading were Mrs. Corlett, Dr. Allenson, Mr. Ashford, Mrs. Barber, Mrs. Kane, Mr. Crookall, Ms. Farragher, Dr. Haywood, Mr. Hooper, Mr. Johnston, Mrs. Maltby, Mr. Peters, Mrs. Poole Wilson and Mr. Speaker all voted for. Against, Mr. Callister, Mr. Cannon, Mrs. Christian, Mr. Glover, Ms. Lord Brennan, Mr. Morehouse, Mr. Smith, Mr. Thomas and Mr. Wannenberg. 14 for, 9 against. Now what happens after the second reading goes to clauses and then it will go through to Ledgco. It could be that Ledgco throw it out. They did earlier on this year. They said it wasn't going to move, so it may not happen. It could be stymied by the upper house, of course, which the bishop would be part of, although we don't have a bishop at the moment. So perhaps that's appropriate. You got any thoughts? Then text, email, call and WhatsApp. Lovely. Be good. We need the bishop's vote to remain, says Terry. Yes, we are more secular nowadays, but look at modern society. It doesn't seem to be working too well, although not perfect. Christianity does give a moral code in which we can all come together. At least having a bishop vote gives Tynwald a code of practice that has worked for most Western societies for over 2,000 years. I feel our politicians should consider the Christian perspective. And a note in from Sarah, who just said, you say we're more secular. However, what about church weddings? We see church weddings most Saturdays throughout the year. What about we're coming up to Christmas, midnight mass? We may not be as religious as we used to be, but life is more complicated and busy than it used to be. People perhaps don't have the time to go to church. So what's next? Will they take the prayers out of the meeting of Keys? What's going to happen to Tynwald Day? There's a religious service there, taken by the bishop. So what's going to happen? Are we just pulling away? Is it like a game of constitutional kaplunk, where you continue pulling bits out until then you don't know what you've got left? Thank you, Sarah. On the point of the bishop, says Eddie, what was the original reasoning for having the position in the first place? Perhaps this should actually clarify why he has the appointment. I feel he can advise on moral as well as religious views. I don't see why he should be removed. I'm not religious, says Eddie. And I'm sure you listened to File on 4, the Dr. Rosalind Ranson thing yesterday, even though it's mostly about how our government ignored her advice on COVID and how she was treated so badly thereafter by the DHSC. On how they removed her from her own office. But in that and in the interview, there are glaring similarities with how the present government and ministers are refusing to listen to those around them who have knowledge and experience. Just like back in 2020 with Dr. Ranson, today's minister is focused dealing with the bishop rather than addressing the litany of failings, says Richard, and the chronic £100 million excess Manx care have spent this year above the old DHSC team and will do next year. If you haven't listened to that, it is available on the catch-up service at the BBC. It's called File on 4, and it concerns two people, really, Dr. Rosalind Ranson and a gentleman in the south of England, and how they've been treated. It's basically about whistleblowers. A note in just saying regarding the bishop, what's the point? Sitting in Tynwald, we have no say in the matter of the bishop or much else. This is something they want to do, totally disregarding the public. Seems more and more the way that they do their own business. I think it's disgraceful, says 328. I mentioned yesterday that we do need politicians of purpose. We do need politicians possibly with an agenda. Surely it's good that politicians do have an agenda, and they've got an idea of something. They get into public life to actually do something, and this may be one of the things that Mr. Hooper wants to do. That's what he's there for. And he's subject to a public vote every 5 years. He's done very well. He topped the vote in Ramsey, so there we are. Anyway, I mentioned that the fluoridation thing was on last night. I don't know whether you went to it or you've got an opinion on this. Every time we've talked about fluoridation in the past, it really, really generates a reaction. Do you think fluoridation of the Isle of Man's drinking water would help reduce dental decay amongst children? It's going up. There's no doubt about that. Public Health's compiled a report to be considered by the Manx government ahead of February's sitting of Tynwald, but not everybody's in favour of fluoridation, adding fluoride to our water so that everybody, you, me, what you give the dog or the cat to drink, everybody will be drinking fluoridated water. The campaign group Say No to Fluoride got a petition against the prospect and held a public meeting in Douglas last night where Ian Rigby, who's a dentist, explained why he doesn't think fluoride is the best option to improve dental health. This is Ian Rigby.
I personally don't believe there's any benefit at all. In fact, the actual research shows that there are more negative effects on developing children by introducing fluoride into the diet, particularly in levels of IQ, and that can be shown with peer-reviewed research papers that are widely available, and that's more dangerous probably than having a few fillings that can be sorted out, but would not be there if the correct environment was given to those people.
The paper that Public Health Isle of Man has been compiling is sitting with the Council of Ministers at the moment, but they say that report is based off new research. You've quoted some research yourself and you say the research shows X, Y, Z. If you're confident in that, do you think the Council of Ministers and Tynwald will reject this?
I really don't know what research they are being shown.
Or perhaps Public Health would conclude the right message in their report as far as you see it?
Not quite sure about how to answer that question. I need to think about where you're coming from with that. As far as I'm concerned, they may be able to put reports to the government, the Tynwald ministers, that shows fluoride is fantastic. But we are then also talking about why mass medicate the rest of us and everything else that's living on the island where we use water, our domestic animals, our animals that we eat and that we get milk from. Why should they also be mass medicated with no nutritional benefit to them?
What would you say come February when, as you mentioned, this proposal will go to Tynwald? What would you say if it is voted through by the island's parliament?
I think that we'd have to try and continue to carry on the fight as we are now, because I certainly don't want fluoride in the water. You don't want fluoride in your water, and we as a community do not want fluoride in our water. And the last fight took 5 years. The first fight in 1978, I believe, was over in 6 months. This one might last longer. But I know that there are a group of people that are motivated and do not want to be mass medicated and polluted with a known environmental toxin that are prepared to go further.
That's a dentist, by the way, Ian Rigby, talking at that meeting last night, representing the anti-fluoride campaign. Mark dropped me a note in, apropos of fluoridation of the water. It's a long practice technique. It provides the benefits that have been stated. The availability of dentists' argument is surely to deal with the dental decay that can be prevented by fluoridation. Is it not better to have good dental health from fluoridation than employ dentists after the dental decay has occurred? Mark said there's a lot of scaremongering by people who cherry-pick obscure, badly researched scientific papers, often involving small cohorts of data. Now, these papers then extrapolate beyond what the data is telling them to claim large-scale effects on whole population. In my opinion, Mark says this is scaremongering, as those who want to believe that this level of fluoride in the water will harm the environment, given the fluoridation plan is only to bring the concentration up to levels found naturally in other places, then there's no cause for concern, says Mark. Luckily, those who are looking at the issue of island fluoridation are aware of this type of paper for what it is. They are discounting it, and they claim that hexafluorosilicic acid is a waste produce and therefore supposedly not for this purpose. A compound only becomes waste when there's no use for it. It's just a label for disposable when the substance has no economic value. In the case of this, this is not the case. It's irrelevant, says Mark, how it's made, as long as it is of the correct purity for the process and the purpose. That's all is relevant. Let's hope the fluoride plan comes to fruition this time. We'll put Mark in the pro-fluoride bag. Surely, says another Mark as well, forcing the Isle of Man to drink fluoride is wrong. What happened to personal responsibility? It's your job as a parent to make sure that your children brush their teeth and to make sure they're not eating too much sugar, says Mark. Perhaps you have a view on this. Should we, some people call it mass medication, putting fluoride in the water, so that young people don't get as many fillings as they are doing at the moment. Maybe children are eating too much sugar. Maybe they're not brushing their teeth enough. If you have children, do they brush their teeth? You tell them? Do you instruct children to brush their teeth? Do you make sure they don't go to bed without brushing their teeth? Do they brush their teeth in the morning? Do they drink water rather than pop? Do you restrict the amount of chocolate they can eat? It's well known, perhaps too well known. Maybe familiarity breeds contempt. The sugar that stays in your mouth turns to acid. That starts to eat the enamel of your teeth. The more sugar you eat, the more sugar that stays in your mouth, the more under attack your teeth become. Now, what do we do? Regarding the bishop, says C, I'm deeply saddened by this vociferous minority. Oh, that's come again. We have double bubble for you, C. Thank you for that. And also a note in from David, a Manxman, who says, get rid of the bishop. He doesn't need to have a vote. Well, that's your opinion. Why? Why do you think that is? Why should we get rid of the bishop? Because the position of the bishop, and I think we should talk about the position of the bishop rather than personalize a particular bishop. The position of the bishop being in Tynwald, being in Ledgco, well, the bishop as a position has had a position within Tynwald for a long, long time. Colin said, people say we don't need the bishop's influence in Tynwald as the majority of people are non-Christians. Well, I'm aware that there are more non-Christians already among the MHKs and MLCs. How do you know that, Colin? Needs to be balanced, he says. Children's teeth are rotten because they don't drink water. It's not sweet enough for them, says Keith. Well, whose fault's that, Keith? Now, surely children aren't born. They don't sort of appear saying, give me a can of Coke. What do we do? Are we as adults, parents in general, carers, are they abrogating responsibility because the child wants to drink orange pop rather than water? And let me see here, all this hand-wringing over the bishop makes me laugh, as if Tynwald or the constitutional structure of the Isle of Man will be undermined by neutering the bishop, not physically. Nearly all news outlets are... Oh, this is Pat. It's an international point. Nearly all news outlets and ministers in the UK, including the Channel Islands, are condemning the genocide on Palestinian women and children by Israel. Why is nothing being said by our parliament and by our media? Well, we leave that to the international media, Pat, but if you have a point you want to make, by all means, do give us a call. Have a chat if it's something. We normally restrict ourselves to what happens on the Isle of Man on Mannin Line. And Vernon's with us. Hi, Vernon.
Morning, Andy. Just a quickie on the children and their teeth. Do you not think it would be a better idea if parents, instead of giving the children sweets for Christmas, gave them an electric toothbrush?
Do you think most... I don't know. Do you think children... like brushing their teeth. I mean, what is it at the moment? And we're told there are more and more problems with children and having dental problems. So is it the way? I mean, do you remember once upon a time there used to be dentists in schools, Vernon? I mean, Ballakermeen had a dentist in their school. QE2 had a dentist at school. So with the fact that something like that's disappearing, is the adult population, are the authorities really leaving kids a bit short here?
I think they are, quite honestly, because I can remember when I was at school, which is quite a few years ago, we used to have to go to Ballakermeen to get our teeth checked over. So,
I mean, this comes back to money in the end, isn't it? Do you think we should be?
Apparently so, but I still think that the idea of electric toothbrushes for the kids, they can get ones that are, they're funnier ones than the ones that adults would use, and they're reasonable. Not saying that they're cheap, but they're reasonable compared to the better ones that are around.
Oh, I see. But so if you make it kind of snazzy and fun and colourful, they'll be more likely to use them.
I'm sure they will do, and make the toothpaste work better.
Okay.
Instead of they usually just muck around their mouth with a toothbrush for about 2 seconds and spit it out, and away they go.
What was the dentist at Ballakermeen like? What was the name?
I honestly can't remember. I know that he used to live down on the bottom road of Ballakermeen Drive, I think it was. It's a long time ago now, I'm afraid.
Good experiences, bad experiences?
I used to go to Mr. Green in Derby Square, who was excellent.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Vernon.
I had a couple of bad experiences, but there we are.
All right.
Take
Thanks
care.
for calling
Bye.
today. Good to hear from you. 28 minutes before 1 o'clock on Manx Radio. We're running a poll today on Manx Radio's social media channels on Facebook and on X, formerly Twitter. It's regarding the MHKs yesterday who voted to progress a bill proposing to remove the vote from the bishop, of course, sits in Ledgco. So we want to know what you think. Should the bishop still be able to vote in Tynwald and in Legislative Council? So go to our Facebook page, and also if you're on X, Twitter, then make sure you dial up Manx Radio and follow us as well on Twitter. Lots of stuff comes out, and they go, including lots of the podcasts, including a podcast of Mannin Line will be found on Twitter as well. Just covering all bases.
It's good to talk. It's how we get things done. So when you apply for a personal loan from Black Horse, you'll get support from one of our relationship managers who's there to talk you through your application. You could borrow up to £50,000 with up to 7 years to pay it back, and you could receive your money within 24 hours of approval. Ready to talk? Go to blackhorseoffshore.co.uk to request a call back today. Finance subject to status. Applicants must be 18 or over.
Everyone's more conscious of energy usage nowadays. So Manx Utilities has begun installing smart meters for standard domestic customers island-wide. With our Smart Living app available too, you'll be in control of tracking and managing your energy. No need to contact us. We'll be in touch when we're ready to fit your smart meter. Visit the Smarter Living page at manxutilities.im. Manx Utilities, delivering a smarter future.
Are you a reluctant landlord, tired of tenant hassles, cursed by constant maintenance, tormented by empty properties producing no rent? Want to escape these worries or get out altogether?
At Prime Lettings, we understand your pain and have bespoke solutions to release you from these problems. Ring us on 616-707 for a free confidential chat.
Prime Lettings. We're on call and on the ball at 616-707.
Athol Garage in Ballasala doesn't just service and repair any make or model of car. They also operate a recovery vehicle to rescue you and your vehicle from anywhere on the island.
See? Aren't you glad we went to Athol?
For top quality work from Nissan factory trained technicians, dedicated aftercare, and now recovery too. Athol, a garage to swear by, not swear at. Book now at athol.im or call the A-Team whenever you need them. 820082.
This festive season on the nation's station, the winning continues with Manx Radio's 12 Days of Christmas. We've got some massive prizes up for grabs,
including return Logan Air flights to London City, a £100 Haldane Fisher voucher, and a family ticket for Aladdin at the Gaiety Theatre.
And lots of other goodies under the tree that could be yours.
Manx Radio's 12 Days of Christmas, brought to you by SpectrumWindows.im.
And it all starts next Wednesday, the 13th of December.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
It's 25 to 1. Thanks for calling in today. We should make it mandatory to vote. It's about time they change the voting slightly. Make it mandatory that we get 2 under 30-year-olds. Under 30-year-olds, if possible, younger people might take more notice. Some of the clowns we have running our Isle of Man would be better in a circus, says Phil. Thank you, Phil. Under 30-year-olds. Well, we've talked about this in the past, and the rate of voting, the turnout's normally okay on the Isle of Man. It does vary from constituency to constituency, but it's normally okay. Of course, we've talked about making mandatory voting in the past. They have it in Australia. I think if you don't vote in Australia, is it a $20 fine? What do you think about that here? There is the question also, the old hoary chestnut of electronic voting and whether or not that should be brought in to get more people into the habit of voting. I just wonder what your thoughts are regarding that. This is all on the back of just talking about what the politicians are doing, taking or aiming to take away the vote from the bishop in Tynwald. Also, we haven't got to the bottom of this. Has this white dog been claimed, by the way? There was a white dog found at the crossroads of York Road and Woodburn Road today. Had no identification. The person that found it took it to the police station, and but we don't know. Has this white dog have been claimed. It's bothering a lot of people. I don't have Facebook or Twitter, so can't take part in your poll. Oh dear, Pat in Laxey. However, I think the bishop should be left alone, and access to medical care should be improved. Also, education, especially preschool education, should be improved. Housing for young working people should be made more accessible. That's just to name but a few. Good to hear from you, Pat. We appreciate it. No to fluoride, yes to the bishop, says Rosemary. Who was it that bullied Dr. Rosalind Ranson? Why have they not been named? They've cost us an awful lot of money. Well, if you listen to that programme, you'll hear Dr. Rosalind Ranson talking about Catherine Magson, who was the boss of DHSC at the time and is no longer there, but is working in England. But you can find more about that. It's no coincidence that the small anti-fluoride minority are also the same anti-vax minority who generally spread misinformation, so hold no relevant qualifications to actually be well informed, says Steve. I'm assuming you've got the qualifications, Steve, but thanks for that. That's your opinion. The notion of putting fluoride in our water is mass medication, says Mark, and I, for one, have not given my informed consent to this in accordance with my human rights. It's against the law, says Mark. I used to work in ShopRite. Lunchtime was always packed with children buying sweets and pop. The dentist at Ballakermeen was horrible, by the way, says Jill. Which one? Because apparently he's been the one that has been named, I think, is Mr. Tinkler, and I'm sure Mr. Tinkler wasn't horrible. I'm just guessing, but I just like to be nice to everybody. Keep the bishop. I'm not religious, says WhatsApper 287, but I think if they lose the bishop, it's another knock to the traditions of the Isle of Man. This government seems hell-bent on taking away bits of the Isle of Man that make it different and an amazing place to live. Well, it is true, isn't it? Lots of bits of the Isle of Man have kind of fallen away, bits that we used to have in the past. Yeah, I'm not saying I'm not being anti-progress, but I mean, we don't have as many pillar boxes as we used to have, do we? And a lot of them are quite scruffy. Lots of the phone boxes have disappeared. Well, who uses phone boxes nowadays apart from drugs pushers? Lots of the sub-post offices have gone. Isle of Man Bank's only got how many branches left now? A few. Barclays disappearing. We don't really have hassle-free parking at the airport like we used to have. You could normally just drive into the airport, take a card, and that was that. We've got the halfway horse trams. The TT scoreboard went. The bishop's vote in Tynwald. Can you conflate all that? Are we losing too much of the Isle of Man? The bishop's issue is a waste of valuable time. Surely the government's got more pressing things as well. No wonder nothing gets done listening to politicians talk about red tape. 24 MHKs, £80,000 per MHK, plus all the additional support staff as well. And by the way, regarding fluoridation, just brush your teeth, says B on 861. And unfortunately, a lot of parents, says B, let their children eat rubbish and drink pop and flavoured milk at best. So all you need is a good diet, water and milk, brush your teeth, mouthwash first. So easy, but so many people can't be bothered. Slipper Smith was a teacher at Ballakermeen. I'm not asking how he got the nickname. Was a teacher at Ballakermeen. His wife was the school dentist. It was a lady 50-odd years ago, but I can't remember her name, says Jill. Have you voted yet in this? Our votes on social media, on Facebook and Twitter, X. Yesterday, MHKs voted to progress a bill proposing to remove the vote from the bishops. So we want to know what you think. Should the bishop be able to vote in Tynwald and in Ledgeco? And I'm not saying this is an official vote, but we will announce what the result of the vote is tomorrow. It's only on social media, Facebook and Twitter. And by all means do sign up with us there. Follow us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter as well. What do you think? I'll announce the vote tomorrow. It is unofficial. It's a straw poll, completely unofficial, but we just want to see which way the wind's blowing.
Save over a third on festive centrepiece joints at ShopRite. An easy-to-carve turkey breast joint that's a delicious alternative to a whole bird, now only £3 per pound. Or a succulent unsmoked boneless Danish gammon joint, just $2.70 per pound. Roast, glaze or slow cook for a delicious crowd pleaser. How about a rind-on pork loin joint for the crispiest crackling at only $2.25 per pound? Can't make up your mind? Why not buy all three? Festive meat savers now in at ShopRite.
The holidays remind us of family, love, and the importance of planning for the future.
This festive season, we found peace of mind, all thanks to Man Benham.
Book an end-of-year consultation. Let's secure tomorrow, today.
No matter how much you need to dig, or how much you want to dump, Fox Group Isle of Man offer an extensive range of plant hire, long-term lease and sales. We're the island's exclusive supplier for Louis Gong excavators with immediate delivery. Our machinery comes with a complete service package with finance plan options. Call John on 458946 to discuss your plant needs. Fox Group Isle of Man, part of the Fox Group of companies.
Your home is your castle, and we think that too. So when you're thinking of new flooring, think Castle Carpets. With over 50 rolls of stock and thousands of samples to choose from, let us carpet your castle. Call 842 480 or visit the showroom in Peel.
Steam into Christmas with family and friends on the unique Isle of Man Railways dining car. Our winter events programme has something for everyone. Journey through the Manx countryside enjoying sparkling festive fun. To get into the Christmas spirit, book now by calling our Yuletide team on 697457 or visit rail.in and experience one of our festive train adventures.
Manx Radio and Orchard Recruitment are playing Santa this Christmas, so get your business on our nice list. From next Monday, the elves will be out delivering festive cheer and delicious mince pies to workplaces across the island. Nominate your company or department at manxradio.com and we could be sliding down your chimney. Workplace mince pies with your nation station Manx Radio and Orchard Recruitment. A refreshing change.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
It's, look at that time, 16 minutes before 1. Tony B's with us now. Hi, Tony.
Yeah, Andy. Right, I'm very strongly in favour of getting rid of the MHKs and keeping the Bishop. Because the one thing he brings is complete independence. And he's also got a lot of experience in the world as opposed to our MHKs who don't. So I think it's a disgrace that they're even bringing this up again, just like the previous caller had said about, OK, well, we should fluoridate the water. We did that, had a discussion about it, and we still insist on going back to it. And exactly the same thing has happened about the Bishop, and it keeps going on and on and on. We didn't get the right answer, so we'll tell you to do it again. They need to focus on the important things we have, not whether the Bishop should have a vote or anything else. He should be left alone, allowed to have a vote, and basically, what difference is that going to make? This is just removing people that don't agree with them. I think it's an absolute disgrace. It's not very democratic, is it? This has been in place for hundreds of years. But that's not good enough for today's politicians. They want to weigh it in their favour so that they can't have anybody voting against them. I think it's a disgraceful approach. And the other thing is that if you are deciding to fluoridate the water and you're going to let DOI do that, can you imagine what's going to happen? We'll all be poisoned. And the other thing, why on earth wouldn't you just give everybody a toothbrush and tell them to use it? And we're talking about little children here. So this is milk teeth that are the problem, not their final teeth, milk teeth. And as the dentist, who wouldn't know what he's talking about because the DOI know everything, and so do the healthcare people, he turns around and says it's not going to do any good and it's dangerous and it's not good for your health.
So you think giving all children a free toothbrush and some of this fluoride toothpaste would help, or maybe just a once-a-year fluoride application on teeth?
Fine, that'll do. But the issue is fluoridating the water is not the sensible thing to do. There's plenty of reports out there showing that it doesn't do any good as far as people's health's concerned. So how are they going to like it when they get another court case where they basically cause a problem to somebody because they put fluoride in the water.
So you think
and
this...
then they'll be back in court again.
This is a solution looking for a problem?
It's a way of them diverting attention from the things that we have as a problem. And this is not important. How many people are we talking about, total? Children. Do we know the number? No, we don't, because they don't tell us numbers. What they do is say, there's a high percentage. And that's driven by the fact that we haven't got enough dentists because of the rules that they've imposed previously. They should have been forcing the dentists to contribute so much of their time as they take up a dental practice. But they've never done that. Tracy Bell came on and said exactly the same thing about 6 months ago, I think. The whole of the MHKs want to talk about things that have no real impact, but they don't want to talk about things that do have a real impact, like a boat not working properly, like a ship not being able to get into ports, like a slightly very expensive dockside we can't use most of the time in Liverpool. And who are all these driven by? Government. I give up. It's when are they going to start waking up and starting doing what they're supposed to be doing instead of running around, pulling things out of the air and saying, this is a good idea, this is a good idea. This will get everybody's attention off of what the main problems are. I just despair. The government should be working on government things for people, not for little tiny groups of people. And if there is an issue with a little tiny group of people, find a solution that doesn't require the whole population to be poisoned.
Okay.
Which we don't ever get a say in, Andy, ever.
All right. Okay, and Tony.
I don't remember anybody in their original manifestos saying, by the way, we're going to put a wind farm up, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And they haven't told us how much it's going to cost. In 5 years' time, we will have more debt than you have income. What are they going to do about that? Right, I've had a rant, so okay. I just think there's people out there not getting the right information. Bonzo's not giving us the right information because he's not talking about base loads. A wind farm's wonderful when the wind blows. When it doesn't blow, what do you do? Good luck.
All right, okay. Thanks, Tony. Good to hear from you.
Happy days, Andy. Take care.
All right, it's 12 minutes before 1 on Manx Radio. Lots of people saying, if I'm not on Twitter or on Facebook, what do I do? Well, this is just a one-day vote. It is only on social media, so we're doing a social media vote. However, if you want to drop me a line, by all means do. Feel free to. You can drop me a note. Go to, it's Mannin Line at Manx Radio, Douglas Head, Isle of Man, IM1 5BW. Mannin Line, Manx Radio, IM1 5BW. Or, of course, you can call the answer phone on 682-631 if you have an opinion regarding the Bishop. It is non-scientific. I'll tell you what the vote is tomorrow on Mannin Line, what your thoughts have been regarding this. But by all means, do get in touch. Please, no fluoride in my water. We're not meant to digest fluoride, says Terry. Read the side of any tube of toothpaste. You'll find a warning not to swallow. It also states, seek medical assistance should you digest it. Fluoride is a depressant and affects the brain's growth, says Terry. Well, I would imagine you'd have to drink thousands of gallons of water, but I would take your point where that is concerned, Terry, and thanks for that as well. I totally agree with Mark. It's the parents' responsibility to ensure that children clean their teeth properly and don't consume too many sugary drinks and food, says Pam in Ramsey. But surely, says Desmond, climate change people cherry-pick data and scaremonger. So perhaps everybody's doing it today. Perhaps it's the trend as well. I presume Mr. Hooper will now propose a bill to abolish LegCo, as they're not democratically elected. The difference with LegCo and the Bishop is he's less likely to vote in favour with the Comyn block vote. Any thoughts? Here's a note in from Fiona, who just said, surely Mr. Hooper has got more problems on his desk with Manx Care running short of money, with the diabetes service on the Isle of Man not being what it should be, with the fact they haven't got that state-of-the-art cancer support centre up at Nobles yet, and also with no real commitment to Kaftrio. Kaftrio is it's the medication for cystic fibrosis, isn't it? We talked about that last week. That's costs an absolute fortune. They're thinking of withdrawing it in the UK. As at the moment, we haven't said that. We've said it will basically continue, but then again, we do tend to follow what happens in the UK with that. But at the moment, cystic fibrosis sufferers get Kaftrio on the Isle of Man. It costs an absolute fortune, but then again, we are all in this together. And surely people shouldn't be excluded just because they're ill. Getting in touch with your MHKs. Now, this weekend there are some surgeries this weekend. Albury Castle Town and Maloo. Saturday the 9th of December, you'll see Tim Glover and Jason Morehouse at Abbey Church Hall in Ballasalla. If you want to have a word with Tim Glover or Jason Morehouse. This Saturday at All Saints Church Hall it's on Selborne Road, Alexander Drive, isn't it? Anne Corlett and Chris Thomas, Douglas Central MHKs, will be there from 2 till 4. Jason Morehouse and Tim Glover are at Abbey Church Hall in Ballasalla from 10 to 11:30. In Ramsey, Dr. Allenson will be with Laurie Hooper at the coroner's office at Ramsey Town Hall. They'll be upstairs there between 10 and midday. And I mentioned also Ewan Watterson, the speaker. Russian MHK doesn't have surgeries, but if you want him to visit you, he'll happily do so. You need to call Ewan Watterson on 685507. That's In Touch with MHKs this weekend. And we've got Marcus with us now. Hi, Marcus.
Hi, I'd just like to say how nice the water is to drink on the Isle of Man. I moved here 5 years ago, and that was one of the reasons for coming here, because I used to live in Somerset, and we used to have to filter our water because you could taste the fluoride in it all the time. It was horrible.
What does fluoride taste of?
Well, it's not very nice. I can't remember what it actually tastes like, but we always used to filter the water because it didn't taste very nice.
And when you say Isle of Man water, because we don't know, because we've always had water like this. We just take it for granted. What's so nice about it for you?
Well, you can drink it straight out the tap. Don't have to filter it because it tastes nice.
That's as good a reason as anybody's, Marcus. Thanks for calling today.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
All right, 6 minutes before 1. Here's Tommy now. Hi, Tommy.
Well, Andy, apologise for the voice. I'm confined to barracks at the moment with a chest infection. So I'm just opposed to the bishop being there totally, Andy.
You're opposed to the bishop being there?
Yeah, for the reason, if he's there, why isn't there a Catholic alternative? Why isn't there a Hindu or a Sikh?
So do you think, so you're not against a religious presence, just the bishop. So if they had it on a rotating basis, so if we had a Catholic bishop there for a while, or a Catholic priest, or a Hindu, or an imam there, what would you think?
Well, at least it would be fair across the board, wouldn't it? I was born into the Catholic faith thing, but I'm a hardline atheist now, Andy, because I've got a little bit of common sense, mate.
Are you looking forward to going to heaven, though, Tommy?
Oh, yeah, God. Where is it, Andy? Up in Victoria Avenue. Is it first turn on the left or the right, Andy?
That's the one, yes. Yeah. It's the one with the broken lamppost, Tommy.
That's the one, Andy. Yeah, I've passed it. So, I've been rejected a few times, Andy, along the way.
All right, thanks, Tommy.
Cheers, mate.
All the best. Why affect fresh Manx water running down our streams? It's the water that makes us different. The children's teeth, says Texter 551. It's part responsibility to ensure brushing. I didn't have a filling till I was 16 and could get my own sugar hits, says Glenn at HH Motorcycles. Thank you for that. With a perfect mouthful of teeth. Thank you, Glenn. Good to hear from you. And Mrs. Smith, how many dentists were there at Ballakermeen. Mrs. Smith, there are so many of them. You're talking about the bishop, says Pat, having a vote in government. Israel gave the casting vote to the head of the rabbi, and yesterday the head of the rabbi voted yes and blessed the law to allow Israeli troops. This is an example of religious voting on government policies. It is, Pat, if what you say is true. It's not really a direct correlation with the Isle of Man, is it? Manx born and bred, I can't even get a dentist, says Texter 490. And Ruth's going for Mrs. Smith again. A wonderful, attractive lady, says Ruth. When was that? And again, Charlie says Mrs. Smith was the school dentist. Skipper or Slipper Smith was the school teacher, was her husband. How did he get that nickname, says Charlie. Regarding the fluoride, says David, I believe the UK has been using fluoride for many years, yet I read in the UK news there's a large and growing problem with children's teeth. So really, what do you do? Open line tomorrow on Manx Radio. Thanks to Chris Quirk on the phones today. Just a quick word, I just want to tell you something. There are rogue traders abroad on the Isle of Man, so remember, coming up to Christmas, please watch out for itinerant traders who are targeting the Isle of Man. Do not use traders who call at your home without an appointment offering to do work, particularly if they won't leave a business card or a telephone number. Do not be pressurized into having unnecessary work done, and don't fall for that line of we were just in the area and we noticed a problem with your roof or downspouts or anything else. Watch out for rogue traders. And if they ask who sent you, tell them it was me.
WINT